All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to our sixth webinar of the Dialogue for Innovative and Sustainable Growth, DISG webinar series. My name is Jirapat from DISG Secretariat. I will be your MC for today's webinar. Today's topic is promoting green growth and energy transition in ASEAN region. We believe that it will be a good opportunity for you to listen to today's discussions of the key persons from the government and academia sectors from ASEAN and Japan. First of all, we are very honored to receive a video clip from His Excellency Sadwinder Singh, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN, for ASEAN Economic Community for an opening remark. Please see the video clip.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be here with you this morning. I'm glad that we are still being able to put and meet each other virtually, and glad to be here speaking to all of you in a very important forum that's on promoting green growth and energy transition in the ASEAN. My very deep appreciation goes to the many resource speakers that will be speaking to us later, and also to METI Japan for actively continuing to sponsor these webinars. And I understand that these are part of the series of the Dialogue for Innovative and Sustainable Growth series, which is a forum dialogue that has been collaborated to support both ASEAN and Japan action plan towards economic resilience, which was, again, it was endorsed last year by both the ASEAN and the Japanese economic ministers to come up with this series of dialogues in order to mitigate and to respond to the current pandemic. The COVID pandemic, as all of you know, its impact and both to economy and community has indeed been unprecedented. But at the same time, we all can feel it anywhere in the world, whether you're in Japan or anywhere in ASEAN. It also has kind of presented all of us with fresh opportunities to also possibly leverage green growth and sustainable development with key strategies to drive our recovery in the post-pandemic period. Our ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, the ACRF, as most of you may know it, which is the region's exit strategy from the pandemic, is therefore infused with principles of building a better and a much more sustainable future, a much more sustainable recovery, which will be enhancing resilience towards future shock. And it also aims on maximizing opportunities to realize the potential of ASEAN's internal markets and our broader economic integration agenda. The ASEAN strategies for recovery, they definitely align very well with the ongoing efforts to facilitate energy transition and to promote resilience through the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, the APIC Phase 2, 2021 to 2025. In return, it reinforces the ASEAN's overall pursuit of green growth and sustainable development. While we know that the region will continue to depend on a mix of fossil fuels and renewables to meet its energy low carbon goals in the immediate future, ASEAN member states have all been able to set quite ambitious energy efficiency and renewable targets relative to the region's current capabilities and resources. The strategic importance is that ASEAN is committed and it will continue to explore all available pathways to achieve the region's energy security and energy transition goals. This is amidst the challenges of the pandemic. The focus is basically to look at efforts to reclaim the region's growth trajectory, and the aspiration is to contribute to the global collective effort of lowering carbon emissions. And as energy transition progresses in the region and globally, and as we strengthen policy frameworks and enabling environments to foster sustainable investments, I feel that energy transition, competitive developmental, especially in the area of financing and of course also deep support to access to technology to support clean energy deployment in secure and affordable, inclusive manner will remain quite crucial. So therefore, it is really of deep importance that as we are approaching energy transition, that we undertake a kind of like all of society support to come together to address it. It's really an enormous opportunity to grow our economies, to further trade and economic cooperation, and also to build a green supply chain ecosystems in our societies, in our communities, and most importantly, to be able to come to a notion of a sustainable new economy that's able to create the new economy jobs that we look so much forward to. Indeed, facilitating an effective long-term energy transition in the region, it truly calls for a holistic and concerted effort, including developing partnerships with our dialogue partners, international organizations, the private sector, and other external partners to access financing, investment, technologies to make it all happen. And to this end, ASEAN truly treasures its continuing and strategic partnership with Japan in advancing mutually beneficial economic and energy initiatives that will align with the region's diverse circumstances. We appreciate that Japan continues to reach out to enhance its cooperation with ASEAN while recognizing the diverse national circumstances and unique energy policies of ASEAN member states, as our region also works very hard to seek to address the energy security as well as the economic competitiveness as we address energy transition issues. These are complex issues, and truly you need to juggle both energy security as well as economic competitiveness and resilience as we address energy transition. On June 21st this year, our ASEAN energy ministers, they all welcomed Japan's ASEAN Energy Transition Initiative, the AETI, which kind of provided a very wide range of support of transition in the region. And I understand that today's discussion is going to go deeper into the AETI in the context of promoting green growth. Now, this focus is extremely timely and critical, and I can assure you it's very deeply appreciated by all ASEAN member states. I believe I speak for all participants today that we all are looking forward to a richer and a much more concrete discussion on economic opportunities available to us, and also resilient policy making solutions that possibly we could consider as we link both ASEAN and Japan energy transition initiatives as we together pursue the road to decarbonization through true green growth. I wish all of you a very successful forum today, and thank you very much again, and have a great, fruitful morning.
Thank you, Your Excellency Sarvinder Singh, for the opening remark. And now let's move on to the next agenda. We would like to invite Mr. Minami Ryo, Deputy Commissioner for International Policy on Carbon Neutrality, Ministry of Trade, Economy and Industry, Japan, for a keynote speech. Mr. Minami, please.
Thank you very much for participating in today's DISC webinar. I am Minami, Deputy Commissioner of Agency for Natural Resources and Energy, Japan. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to His Excellency Sarvinder Singh, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for ASEAN Economic Community, the panelists who will join us later, and all of you who have gathered here today. And I would also like to express my gratitude to all of you who have been involved in the preparation of today's webinar. The world is facing an urgent need to address the issue of climate change, and there is a widespread trend towards green growth, making the response to global warming an opportunity for new growth. In Asia, too, we need to keep up with this trend and make it an opportunity to achieve both transition to a clean social system and sustainable growth. Japan is also committed to doing its utmost to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and a 46% reduction of greenhouse gas emission for 2030. Based on the green growth strategy, which was formulated last year, we will actively promote innovative technologies and their implementation in society. For example, METI is working to support companies with a newly created 2 trillion Japanese yen fund to encourage bold investments and groundbreaking innovations. Japan will also actively contribute to the realization of green growth in Asia, especially with ASEAN, which is one of Japan's most significant partners. As a partner who fully recognizes the challenge that ASEAN is currently facing, we would like to support and cooperate with ASEAN countries in drawing up and implementing a roadmap for new economic development through green growth, making use of Japanese technology, industrial capability, and experience. As ASEAN's energy demand is expected to continue to grow in line with economic growth, a lot of effort will need to be made to achieve carbon neutrality in the future. In this regard, we consider that 3 important points need to be taken into account. So first, it is important to recognize that there are many different paths towards a carbon neutral energy transition for each country. In particular, ASEAN is at a very different stage of development and geographical conditions from country to country. It is most effective to promote initiatives according to the energy situation and the technological capabilities of each country. Secondly, in passing the energy transition, it is necessary to create various innovations through research and development of innovative technologies in order to explore all types of energy and technologies. In addition to maximizing the use of renewable energy and energy efficiency through such technological innovations, ASEAN also needs to successfully combine various options such as the use of hydrogen and ammonia and CCUS, carbon recycling. Thirdly, it is necessary to actively engage ASEAN countries not by solely suspending financial support for fossil fuels or divestment, but by providing support for the introduction of innovative technologies and financing to ensure that ASEAN countries do not leave behind in the transition to a low-carbon society. It is also important to establish a framework to attract investment and funding for various projects and technologies that contribute to the energy transition in ASEAN. In June this year, the special meeting of ASEAN ministers on energy and the ministers of economy, trade, and industry of Japan was held to discuss various and programmatic energy transition, taking into account the circumstances of ASEAN countries. Minister Kajiyama proposed the Asia Energy Transition Initiative, a so-called AETI, as Japan's comprehensive support for energy transition in Asia. On 4th October this year, Japan will hold the first Asia Green Growth Partnership Ministerial meeting. It's so-called AGGPM. ASEAN and other countries will be invited to participate in this meeting to share the concept of energy transition, and through these opportunities, we will promote the concept of a various and programmatic energy transition and steadily provide support for the realization of future carbon neutrality in Asia. We also cooperating with the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia area regarding AETI and are making progress in discussions with each country to support the development of roadmap. Also, in order to achieve carbon neutrality in the future, other multifaceted support, such as finance support, technology development, and human resource development is needed, and various workshops and seminars are planned. In order to achieve today's theme, promoting green growth and energy transition in ASEAN region, it requires the collective wisdom of ASEAN countries, both domestic and international. In today's panel discussion, we are expecting to hear frank opinions and suggestions on the future outlook and ASEAN-Japan cooperation from the leaders of various organizations and institutions in the ASEAN region who are at the forefront of their field. It is also essential for companies to take initiative and innovative drawing on their knowledge and strength. Therefore, we expect to deepen our discussions on various and programmatic energy transition, taking into account of the current power supply composition and the status of diffusion of new technologies in the ASEAN countries, as well as efforts to change corporate behavior over the medium to long term through financing. With reference to outcome of the discussion in today's webinar, the government of Japan will continue to support ASEAN countries in their global decarbonization efforts with a view of promoting green growth and energy transition in the ASEAN region through various approaches from a medium to long-term perspective. Last but not least, we hope that this webinar will contribute to a better understanding of the concept of a gradual and realistic energy transition towards green growth and future carbon neutrality in the ASEAN region, and provide an opportunity for further cooperation between ASEAN and Japan. Once again, thank you very much for participating in today's DIST webinar. And let me finish my speech by expressing our hope for a great success in your future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minami. Your explanations on Japanese government's initiatives are truly insightful and encouraging for ASEAN. We will now have panel discussion. For this session, we will discuss promoting green growth and energy transition in ASEAN region among distinguished speakers from government and academia sectors in ASEAN and Japan. As panelists, 3 speakers join. First, Dr. Nuki Aya Utama, Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Energy, ACE. Second, Dr. Saleh Abdurrahman, Senior Advisor on Environment and Technology for Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Indonesia. Last, Mr. Soda Takeshi, Director for International Affairs, Commissioner's Secretariat, Agency for Natural Resources and Energy, AETI, Japan. The panel discussion is moderated by Dr. Han Poo-min, Senior Energy Economist, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. Now, I would like to pass the microphone to Dr. Poo-min. Dr. Poo-min, please.
Thank you so much, Khun Chirapat, and a very good morning. As already introduced, I'm Han Poo-min, Senior Energy Economist at AETI, and I'm very honored today to take this role as moderator. And as Khun Chirapat already introduced, we have 3 highly expert and specialists on today to discuss on today's discussion and on the issue of promoting green growth and energy transition in ASEAN regions. I think before we start the panel discussion, I would like to invite our panel members to make a brief introduction of themselves, briefly about 30 seconds each. Let me first invite Dr. Nuki Aya Uttama first, and then followed by Dr. Saleh Abdurrahman and also Soda-san, Mr. Soda Takeshi-san. First, I think Dr. Nuki, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pomin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Nuki Agia Utama from the ASEAN Center for Energy as Executive Director. The ASEAN Center for Energy is a think tank organization under the ASEAN member states, working on the main pillar for as a catalyst, knowledge hub, as well as the think tank organization. So hope that we can have a very fruitful discussion today. Thank you very much.
Next, Dr. Saleh, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pomin, for this opportunity. My name is Saleh Abdurrahman. I'm connected with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia and the oil and gas regulatory body. I'm dealing with preparing Indonesian long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience. Thank you.
Next, Soda-san, please.
Thank you, Humi-san. I'm Takeshi Soda, Director of International Affairs of METI. I have more than 20 years experience in METI, and then it's my honor to join to this panel of the DISG seminar. And then it's really also honor and my pleasure to discuss with the distinguished panelists and also Dr. Humi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. I think your background very impressed us, and we hope that will bring the best insight for today's discussion. Now I would like to invite Dr. Nuki first from ASEAN Center for Energy. First of all, we learned through the keynote speech about the Japanese government initiative supporting the green growth and energy transition in ASEAN. And in this regard, we would like to understand the circumstance and situation from ASEAN side. Could you please tell us what are the current efforts or relevant activity from your institution, particularly ASEAN Center for Energy, and what are the challenges that you may see that for promoting energy transition in ASEAN region? Dr. Nuki, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pomin. I think it's very interesting question that you raised right now. We have working a lot on these activities, and energy transition is inevitable and underway in the region. And based on the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, which is our flagship project last year, fossil fuel will continue to play a substantial role in the ASEAN energy landscape. And indeed, it is projected that oil, gas, and coal will have almost 85% share of total primary energy supply by 2040. And it is also projected that in 2040, the carbon dioxide emission will reach more than 4,000 million ton carbon dioxide equivalent. The electricity sectors and transportation sectors start out as a remain and the biggest emitters of GHG emission in the Southeast Asia. The dependency of fossil fuel may also raise some energy security issues. Currently, ASEAN is already a net importer of oil, and it is expected to be net importer of natural gas and coal by around 2035, 2037, and also 2040 respectively. Diversification of energy supply, such as renewable energy, will help the region to reduce the dependency of fossil fuel. But not only renewable energy, but also other alternative energy, such as nuclear as well. The region's energy transition agenda is well reflected in the new cycle of the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APAC Phase 2, 2021-2025, which is endorsed last year by the 38th ASEAN Minister of Energy meeting, or AMEM. We have one important sub-theme over there, which is accelerating energy transition and strengthening energy resilience through greater innovation and cooperation. I think what you mentioned is correct. What these cooperation happen and what will be the good cooperation needed in Southeast Asia, and Japan is one of our good partner in these matters. Also in the ASEAN Power Grid, we aim not only to expand the multilateral electricity trading, but also to increase the penetration of VRE into the grid. Up to January 2021, the Laos, Thailand, Malaysia has traded more than 1.7 gigawatt hour of electricity and aiming to expand to Singapore by next year. And natural gas, again, is considered as a transition fuel as it is the cleanest fossil fuel energy source. And one of the major infrastructure under the Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline, ASEAN is aiming to pursue the development of the common gas market through the expansion of gas pipeline and LNG infrastructure. Currently, there are 9 LNG regasification terminals with a combined total capacity of 38.7 MTPA in 5 countries. And there are 13 bilateral pipelines with a length of more than 3,600 kilometers connecting 6 countries. Under the coal and clean coal technology, coal will continue to take share in the ASEAN energy mix up until 2040, and mostly on the power sectors. And ASEAN is aiming to promote the utilization of clean coal technology, CCT, including the carbon capture, utilization, and storage. There are a total of 10 gigawatt of supercritical CFPP in 2019, and various countries also moving towards advanced technology by mandating the new power plant to utilize subcritical or USC, ultra supercritical. Energy efficiency and conservation is important. ASEAN has exceeded the regional target 20% in 2020. And we pursue toward a more ambitious target of 32% reduction by 2025. And this plan also indicated with the aspirational target of RE that we plan to increase the share of RE in TPS, which is 25 to reach 23% by 2030, and increase the RE share in installed power capacity. I think this one is quite important. 35% by 2025. However, ASEAN is quite lag behind in terms of achieving the RE target, where the RE share in TPS currently is positioning around 14%. You asking about the challenges. Financing and investment is the biggest challenge right now. According to the same studies, the ASEAN Energy Outlook 6, to achieve the APEC target, substantially, the power sector investment required up until 2040 accumulated amount is 500 billion US dollar, both combination between RE and the fossil fuel, and 75% amongst those targeted on the RE investment. However, our projection was considered the long-term projection, and it is important for us for the next ASEAN Energy Outlook 7 to consider the least cost scenario. So hopefully next year we're going to have a more rational, more reflecting the actual condition by putting the study on the more least cost scenarios. Then we can looking at what will be the best combination of the power mix, of the energy supply mix up until 2050 or beyond. And capacity and capability, I think is also important. We need a lot of technology to be introduced, and also expertise throughout the globe needed to supporting the activities in Southeast Asia to achieving such target, and technology advancement. I think those are very important activities as well as the challenges that currently we have. Thank you, Dr. Pomin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki. I think you highlight a very key point already that ASEAN has faced, and actually also ASEAN trying to do many things also to overcome this issue. I think in similar question, the same question, I would like to invite Dr. Saleh to have comment about this topic as well. Particularly the challenge for promoting energy transition in ASEAN. Dr. Saleh, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pomin. It's my great pleasure to be here. What challenge we face on the promoting the renewable energy development in our case? A number of challenges, I think. Most importantly, number one is that as developing countries, we do a least cost option on developing our energy development. When you talk about the least cost option, then you need to find the lowest price in developing our say for electricity generation. This is also in line with the fact that Indonesia is still very low in electricity consumption per capita. We are now stand at around 1,100 kilowatt hours per capita. So we need to accelerate the generation of electricity where our people is affordable to buy the cost of electricity. That's number one. Secondly is that most of our people is familiar with carbon economy. So we need to do all effort to diversify our energy source by promoting energy diversification and also energy conservation. Secondly, I think I agree with what Pak Nuki has said, that the challenge is perhaps on the investment. As the fact that our national budget is very limited, we don't have any flexibility to allocate the budget to the renewable energy, so that we really need foreign investors to support us in developing our energy renewable. And I agree with His Excellency Minamo Ryo-san when he said that assisting developing countries is not by suspending support for fossil fuel, but to provide support on technology and finance. I think that's very good. So we ready to continue our excellent cooperation with Japan and other countries to help us, Indonesia, to meet our net zero emission target by 2060 and to increase our electricity consumption per capita to help our economic is growing. That's my first comment on that part. Pomin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleh, for your insightful comment, and also I think one of the great challenge that you share inside with Dr. Nuki also on the investment. I think sometimes we come back on how to address this issue, but let's proceed to hear from Japan perspective. Let's hear from Soda-san. Could you please provide us what contribution that Japan has planned to do in helping ASEAN toward green growth and energy transition? And what are the challenges that, in your view, that ASEAN probably may face in this transition? Soda-san, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Fumi-san. I completely agree about your challenges from Nuki-san and then Sarah-san about the investment on the energy infrastructure in ASEAN countries, because I also know the concern about the movement of the divestment from fossil fuel projects, because in the near future, energy infrastructure will not be able to receive financial support due to this divestment movement. For this reason, as our Deputy Commissioner Minami said, the ASEAN-Japan Energy Ministers meeting on June 21st, our Minister Kajiyama explained the importance of declaring carbon neutrality to ASEAN energy ministers in order to attract international finance. As you know well, the Paris Agreement requires all countries to commit to achieve carbon neutrality during the second half of this century. However, Japan is not in a position to require ASEAN countries to set a target year or timelines of carbon neutrality. Rather, it is 100% up to each ASEAN country to decide it. From this perspective, I am very pleased to hear that Indonesia has set its goal for achieving carbon neutrality by 2060 at the end of this last month. This is a significant step forward in terms of promoting energy transitions in ASEAN. In addition, I want to mention about importance of drawing roadmaps in order to realize carbon neutrality. However, it should be very difficult and complicated for a single country to develop a roadmap by itself. Therefore, AREA and IEEJ, this is the Japanese Economic Research Institute, are currently providing tailor-made assistance for each ASEAN country to draw its own roadmap towards carbon neutrality. We, Japan, would like to financially support the projects and technologies which are positioned in the roadmap. For that purpose, we have already prepared $10 billion to support these projects. As Minami-san mentioned earlier, in order to support realistic energy transition in ASEAN, Japan had launched AETI, which is the Asia Energy Transition Initiatives. This is the kind of the comprehensive and concrete support initiative. AETI includes not only the support for drawing roadmaps and $10 billion of financial support, but also the support for human resource development for 1,000 people in Asia, and also the support for sharing knowledge about decarbonization technologies by having workshop and online seminar. This is my first comment on your first question from Fumi-san. Back to you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Soda-san. I think you have highlighted a very important key activity I think from Japan's side that planning to support ASEAN in energy transition. I think this is a very great news for ASEAN. I think many of ASEAN will welcome of this support. I think let's move to the next question that about the important circumstance or condition when promoting energy transition in ASEAN. So we want to know what particularly circumstance, particularly that what are the conditions that are important to be considered when we are promoting energy transition. So I think first I would like to invite again Dr. Nuki to share your opinion about this issue. Dr. Nuki, may I invite you to have your opinion, please?
Yeah, thank you again, Dr. Pomin. The circumstances or conditions important to be considered when promoting energy transition in ASEAN. Yes, it is a very important question. Highlighting the last ASEAN Ministry of Energy meeting in 2020, the minister recognized that energy transition in ASEAN is focusing not only on shifting from fossil fuel to renewables, but also maintaining its affordability, its reliability, resiliency, cleaner energy option, and technology toward post-pandemic recovery. And it is also important that transition should also make sure that the energy is secure enough, and also require one important thing that it is accessible enough. And the member states are collectively agreed that achieving energy transition as a common goal. And it is important to note that each country has their own uniqueness and diverse energy system. Specifically, it is resource-based. And there is no single silver bullets or one single solution to address the challenges of energy transition, security, and sustainability. Therefore, to meet the direction should consider the country's national, social, and economic circumstances and needs with diverse energy resources, economics, affordability to the people, appropriate technology. I think it's quite important messages. The appropriate technologies, financial resource, and also cultures. A different type of energy resource needed to be equally addressed and assessed, and the option for energy generation must be expanded to available resource and technology. Its option will require further advancement of technological innovation and fully move towards carbon neutrality. So there is no sudden move in that sense. We need to move forwards on the gradual manners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki, for your insightful remark on that particular question. I think this is very rich from your point of view in terms of how the ASEAN balance the view of energy security, affordability, and as well as the economic growth. I think that they need to use, what resource they have that need to maximize their potential in order to meet that futures carbon neutralities or clean energy system in the futures. I think I really appreciate your point. I think it's well taken. The next, let me hear the view from Dr. Saleh on this question as well. And how do you evaluate and expect Japanese initiative on Asia Energy Transition Initiative in support ASEAN when promoting ASEAN energy transition? Dr. Saleh, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pomin. First, I think I would like to express our appreciation to Dr. Soda that we really having the very good support from Japan on our decarbonization pathway. We work currently with METI, with IEG and area. So we really hope that the cooperation will be able to provide us with a very good information, especially on technology that likely to be well developed in, say, 20 to 30 years from now. On your question, Dr. Pomin, that we continue to work on a number of initiatives now to provide better circumstances on the energy transition pathway in our country. But what is important in our perspective is the certainty and clarity and consistency on policy. This is we consider very important to let the circumstances suited with, especially with the investors. We have a very clear target actually on our energy mix. We have set a 23% of renewable by 2025. This will not be easy at this time because we only reach less than 15% in 2020. We have some priority now to address the COVID-19 condition, and so I think the situation on renewable energy is really a challenge. That's why we talk about investment before. Secondly, I think we continue to create a much needed conducive climate for our investors, like continuing to provide the level playing fields to our investors. And also we continue to provide more and more incentive for both on fiscal and non-fiscal elements or incentives on our promotion of energy transition. However, I think we also see that the concentration on the support now from developed countries, if I may like to say that, is more on the solar and wind technology. Actually, we hope that the support will also be provided for other types of energy that we have much potential in Indonesian case, like the geothermal, like the biomass, bioenergy, that we also plan to develop on our energy mix. We need support on developing these types of energy. Thank you, Pak Momin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleh. I think you have said and made very well compliment to what Dr. Nuki has raised. I think I'm also delighted to hear that you also touch upon when I want to ask earlier on the key challenges on the investment. People talk about that, but you have highlighted about the need to have stable regulation policies and also kind of policy that is to create market and level playing field. I'm very glad that you add this point in. And also you observe very well on the trend of international support, particularly toward wind and renewable and geothermal and others. I think this very well noted on the current development of the outside support to ASEAN. Let me thank you. So, by the way, Dr. Saleh, for this point. Let me invite next Soda-san to hear his view, to hear Soda-san's view on this comment made by Dr. Saleh and Dr. Nuki on this particular issue. Soda-san, may I invite you to have some comment also on also you can make comment on this what Dr. Nuki and Dr. Saleh have share in this discussion. Dr. Soda-san, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Fumi-san. As the Mr. Nixon mentioned about the inequality, unique, the characteristic of each ASEAN countries, he mentioned about there is no single way to achieve carbon neutrality. There should be a kind of a variety of the pathways to achieve carbon neutrality. We completely agree this kind of the importance of the diversity. And then because when we draw the kind of roadmaps towards carbon neutrality, we need to take into account the different circumstances of each countries, like the energy mix or renewable potentials, and then not to mention, as I explained, area and IEJ's roadmap includes these kind of differences of each country. And also, I think the other important thing is the autonomy, because the area and IEJ's analysis is based on the actual data of each country, as well as the assumption of cost reduction of decarbonization technologies, such as renewable and CCS. Then, area and IEJ's analysis shows a concrete roadmap towards carbon neutrality based on the cost minimization model, in which the cheapest energy resources and technologies will be introduced first, followed by more expensive one. However, a model is just a model. It is up to the government of each ASEAN country to decide which energy resources and technologies will be introduced. For instance, in one country, area and IEJ's analysis show that nuclear power will be introduced at around 2040. When area showed the result of its analysis to the governmental officer of that country, he said, "We would like to area to remove the option of nuclear power from the model because the public acceptance of nuclear power is not yet sufficient in our country." After receiving this comment, area and IEJ modified the models assumption and show the result without the nuclear option. As such, area and IEJ is just supporting to draw roadmap towards carbon neutrality with a tailor-made approach, taking into account the different circumstances and energy policies of each country. We can say that area and IEJ's analysis is just a second medical opinion. Again, it is the government of ASEAN countries who can draw its own roadmap towards carbon neutrality, and area and IEJ will only provide reference information and technical advice with necessary full supports. And then finally, to respond to the comment from the Saleh-san about what Indonesia is wanting what kind of technology is needed, or what kind of energy resources needed in Indonesia. You mentioned that not only solar or wind, the other options like biomass or geothermal or such kind of thing. And as I said, we will support the energy transition by all technologies and all resources. And then if these projects are designed, or these projects are positioned in your roadmap towards carbon neutrality, we can support in the framework of the AETI? Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soda-san, to have very precise comment on this topic, and I think very well a note of the point you highlight that the area and IEJ provide a concrete roadmap for ASEAN country toward the carbon neutralities, and anyway the country can draw their own roadmap based on their I think based on their circumstance. I think this point is well taken, and ASEAN country is happy to hear this as well. I think now let me move to the third topic on the necessary international cooperation and further cooperation between ASEAN and Japan for the green growth and energy transition. So I would like to first to ask the opinion from Dr. Nuki-san about this question that what kind of the international cooperation that you can see or you envisage between the ASEAN and Japan for the promoting green growth as well as to promote energy transition. Dr. Nuki, may I invite you again for your opinion, please?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Pomin. ASEAN really appreciate the initiative and opportunities given by Japanese government, and the internal support that we require realizing the energy transition. I think the government will play an important role in advancing energy transition. The policy signals to stimulate investment and innovation are needed for accelerating energy transition. So most of the member states already think on that perspective. The policy support and intermediation initiatives such as clear collective policy vision and target, stringent efficiency and emission standard, business initiatives, as well as financial and technical incentive for research and development as one of the examples. The best practices or knowledge sharing is important, in my opinion, for building up the capacity and capabilities of the policymakers for the energy policy and planning. So looking at the potential of the least cost energy scenarios that we discussed previously, I think Japanese side already mentioned a lot by Takeshi-san, and also Dr. Saleh Abdurrahman mentioning that it is important step forward to looking at the potential of energy system with the perspective of least cost. So learning from Japan, which is aiming towards carbon neutrality in 2050, will be beneficial for ASEAN member states and further replicate and adjust but again, it is based on its member state needs. Another important thing that we need to we consider is the financial support. As I mentioned previously, on the ASEAN APEC targeted scenarios on the ASEAN energy outlook, we need around more than 500 billion US dollars on the power sector alone. So it is also necessary to explore an alternative and various financial platforms, mechanism, and policy support to ensure adequate and diverse financing in the ASEAN region. So the more option, the better. The more international cooperation is the better. And also mobilizing funds from public and private sector is also important and needed to be strengthened in order to establish a sustainable financing for the transition process in the region. Another thing is technology development. There are various interests from the ASEAN member states to explore further alternatives on low carbon sources technologies, such as I also as we mentioned on the ASEAN Energy Outlook and also APEC. For example, the hydrogen, the advanced nuclear, including SMR, CCUS, battery storage, carbon recycling, and other technology which is related with the high efficiency and low emission technology, or HELE. And those are very important for us to be really understand and mastering this. The affordability of the advanced and low carbon technology also one of the main consideration for the transition in the region. Research, development, and demonstration projects will be the key to drive down the cost of technology as well as increase the potential of commercialization. And then I want to also highlight that during the special AMETI, which conducted last June in 2021, ASEAN welcomed the future cooperation with Japan, especially since we share common goals in terms of sustainable and low carbon energy development. And we believe that ASEAN and Japan can talk and can further talk side by side to achieve green growth and on the energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki-san, for your insightful remark on this question. I really appreciate your point, touch on all these issues, financial, technical, and as well as capacity building. I think the same question, I just want to hear also from Dr. Saleh on this particular issue also. Dr. Saleh, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pomin. I think this is very important topics that we discuss on the international support. I think for developing countries like ASEAN, Indonesia, we need the support more and more on the time where we enter the decarbonization or the carbon neutrality era where we propose globally. So I think what we may develop the cooperation is on two tracks. One is on the public related support, like what Japan and other countries have been provided to ASEAN countries, including Indonesia. But if I may suggest us to concentrate on the joint research and pilot development, okay, on clean technology, like Dr. Nuki has also mentioned, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Also on the blue and green hydrogen, on the fuel ammonia, and the advanced biomass or IGCC, those related with low emission technology and renewable energy technology. I think we hope that we can concentrate on that tracks so that we can develop together with our college from Japan. We have lots of potential in Indonesia to be used as an area to proceed with extensive research, like what Japan is doing with some other countries, I understand now. In this regard, we also hope that Soda-san may update us with the information how to proceed with the IT support, because my colleague asking how to get Japan 10 billion support for to be started to help us in developing, especially on local development renewable energy program. Secondly, of course, on the private track, so we understand that many Japanese investors and other countries' investors are here in Indonesia. We hope that we can increase that cooperation. As I said before, that we continue to work to improve all necessary conducive climate for investment in Indonesia, and I think very soon we will issues like the carbon pricing regulation, as well as on the renewable energy new pricing regulation, which we hope will be more attractive to the development of RE development in Indonesia. We also hope that the new types of cooperation of investment will not just concentrate on renewable energy, I mean the energy part, but also on the industrial side. So if we can develop like integrated energy and industrial project with Japan investors, that will be much expected by our side. Thank you, Dr. Pomin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleh, for your insightful remark on this kind of the international cooperation and support. And I again thank you, Dr. Saleh, and I would like also to hear the comment from Soda-san on this particular issue. I know that you already highlight what Japan has support so far to ASEAN and have pledged a commitment in financing 10 billion in this energy transition, but would be highly appreciated if you probably want to see area for further cooperation between Japan and ASEAN. Soda-san, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Fumi-san. As to this question, we believe that the most important international support for the realization of the energy transition in ASEAN is, as you mentioned, finance and technology and capacity building. And first, as to the finance, as I mentioned, that we have already committed to $10 billion of financial support. And then to respond to the Sarah-san's question about the kind of the update information about our support, actually, this is kind of really already started because this support is based on the private companies' activities. So we have already heard that several Japanese companies already talk with the several companies or in Indonesia, and they have already started to this kind of not kind like a actual the projects, but like as you mentioned, how to say, a joint joint research program, or like as you mentioned, as you know that the Gundi CCS project, such kind of thing. So we have already started this kind of like a collaboration in Indonesian companies. So this is the first part of the finance. And then second part is the technology issues. And then in order to avoid the situation that the roadmap will be the just a kind of paperwork, we need to listen carefully to the voices from the industries, and we have to ask them that what type of decarbonization technologies are available, and if they are still in the R&D stage, when they will be commercialized and how much it will cost. Therefore, it is extremely important to have intensive discussions between the government and industries. So in the near future, especially in Indonesia, we are in the plan to have such kind of the dialogue between the government and industries, including Indonesia and Japan. And then thirdly, not only the intensive discussions between the government and industry, we have to invite financial institutes like ECAs or MDBs and private banks, because if they join to these discussions, our roadmap will be more how to say feasible and practical, and then also like more powerful and robust. So we are going to have such kind of like discussions with the government, industries, and also like financial sectors. Finally, I think capacity building is very important for any countries to achieve the carbon neutrality. Maybe it will take several decades to complete energy transition, and then in order to keep up with the rapid evolving and changing trends in energy and decarbonization technologies, it is necessary for young people to broaden their views and to follow new technology trends and the geopolitics related with the energy and climate. In that sense, Japan would like to hold various seminars and workshops to develop human resources in ASEAN. So if you have any concrete requests or idea, please kindly to let us know. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Soda-san. I think this is very concise, brief but concise in terms of your responses in terms of the international support issue to support ASEAN in energy transition. I think we are coming to the end to the webinar today, but I think to say, I think each of the panelists gave very insightful remark, but I just would like to have a few words that you could wrap up about what you have today discussed. I think this is an opportunity to wrap up concisely key point from your talk. First, I would like to invite Dr. Nuki first. Dr. Nuki, could you please convey a concise message of today's talk from your point, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Momin. Again, thank you very much for these great opportunities. In our opinion, gradual changes on energy system, especially towards energy transition, is a way much better rather than sudden heartbreaks on achieving such, for example, the reduction of carbon in the power sectors, in the supply side and energy supply, and also in the demand side. So switching from fossil-based fuel to zero carbon emission, we need to have a gradual strategies. We need to have a very solid plan. And of course, those important measures that we discussed just now, the least cost scenario. So in Southeast Asia, the affordability is one important keywords that that currently mandated, and it is important for us in order also to achieve this economic growth. Therefore, we have to really carefully having a good plan by considering the least cost. Again, energy transition needed to be designed properly in order to achieve the sustainable energy supply, energy security, also again affordability. And one important thing is that to maintain the people. So it is sustainable, but the people cannot, receive the energy provided by the government, means nothing. And then important things that we need to consider is uniqueness of each member states. There is no one silver bullets to solve all of these energy issues in each member states, and also again in Southeast Asia altogether. There are some certain uniqueness of the solution of the energy supply as well as the energy strategy in its member states. We need to engage more on the and also private engagement. We need to have a more support, both technical support as well as financial support, as we need a lot of investment on providing enough energy supply in the next couple of years, especially if it goes on the energy transition, meaning that we try to move on this current comfort zone towards something else which is very, very diverse. I think that's all my key takeaways from my side. Thank you again for these opportunities. Back to you, Dr. Poming.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki. I think this takeaway point is very, very key point from your side. Thank you so much. The next, I would like to invite Dr. Saleh to actually put the bullet point that all the people can remember what actually the key point from your side. Dr. Saleh, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. I could say no more than what Pak Nuki actually has said, but let me add some small points on that. I agree that the energy transition is the agenda of all countries to cope with the climate target. However, that the way we do our decarbonization pathway is depend on our local circumstances. I would say this is the bottom-up approach. So all initiative that we prepare, that's what best suits our local situation. Third, I think I hope that we can enhance our cooperation with Japan to scale up the cooperation. I understand that we have been provided support for the Gundi project, as Sodasan mentioned, but I also hope that the IT scheme can also be dedicated to supporting energy transition in local scale, where we can also increase the economic activity of our local people in line with the renewable energy development. with the support of IT. That's why I hope that we can have updated modalities and procedures that we can have to get the IT support on smaller size project. Thank you very much, Dr. Pomin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleh. Very nice point that you highlight. Next, I would like to invite Soda-san to wrap up and give a key bullet point of today's talk from your side. Soda-san, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Fumi-san. To wrap up and then to emphasize, I want to know the importance of the roadmap issues, and then in order to attract carbon investment or foreign investments, we need the declaration of the carbon neutrality, and we also need the roadmap to achieve the carbon neutrality. And then, as I said, the area and IJ and Japanese government will fully support to draw this kind of roadmap. And then Japan would like also support financially the projects and then technologies which are position in such kind of roadmaps. And then Japanese industries and Japanese banks and Japanese government are all ready to support and to cooperate with the ASEAN countries. And then especially in Indonesia, we are very pleased to and we're looking forward to have intensive discussions with the Indonesian government and the Indonesian industries and Japanese government and Japanese industry and then Japanese banks. Thank you very much to have this kind of great opportunities. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you so much, Soda-san. Thank you so much, Dr. Saleh and Dr. Nuki-san. I think all the point you have provided, I think already the wrap-up point for myself. I think I will not say any further, but just to say that to add a few points, that although you gave very precise and key takeaway point, that we come to agree that the energy transition is very challenging for ASEAN countries, because I think they need to balance first, as many panelists have highlighted, in terms of the energy affordability. At the same time, they need also balance with economic growth. And with that, Japan, with the area and IEJ has provided a concrete roadmap how the ASEAN and each country can make its own way to reach the carbon neutrality. Though the target year is not been set, but likely the country will be set different target timeline, like 2060 or 2070, based on each country economic circumstance. And we know that shifting away from fossil fuel is very hard, because we've been dependent on this fossil fuel so long. And I think to turn away quickly during the energy transition without considering clean use of fossil fuel, I think this is a very kind of very big issue for ASEAN. I think the clean technologies will be important, where the Japan role and support will be critical for ASEAN in this energy transition. I think we all agree that financing is challenging. At the same time, the investment environment need to be created with ASEAN context. So I think we have Japan is already ready to support to ASEAN energy transition and green growth. And let me also take this opportunity to congratulate and thank for Japan government, always support to ASEAN countries. I think my role as a moderator today is come to the end. Again, thank all the excellent panelists today. And I hope that we will probably meet again in the near future soon. With this, I would like to turn my microphone back to Kun Chirapat. Kun Chirapat, the floor is back to you, please.
Okay. Thank you, all the distinguished speakers and Dr. Pullman. I would like to thank you everyone for joining us today. So we reached our webinar time limit for today. I'd like to announce that we are now preparing the 7th webinar in late September or in early October. And details will be disseminated to today's participants from the ISG Secretariat once decided. In addition, the questionnaire will be shown when you leave this webinar. And the Secretariat will also send the questionnaire to everyone after the webinar. We would be grateful if you could answer so that we can reflect your opinions on webinar in the future. And for your information, you can register the mailing list that regularly sends the ISG activities and webinar information from this QR code. Looking forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.